Well, hello everybody. It's great to be here with you today. My name is Brentan, and today's class is going to be a class for elbow mobility, where we're going to look at learning how to rotate our elbows and how to hinge our elbows. So just the way that when we build our knees, it has impacts on our ankles and our hips, same thing with our elbows, impacting our wrists and our shoulders. So if your wrists or shoulders register as sort of problem areas for you, I think you'll get a lot out of today's practice. And when you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started in a comfortable seated position. So even if you wanna sit up on a chair, actually I mean to say any position you wanna start in is good. I'm gonna sit for just the simplicity of being in front of a camera, but sometimes I do this even just walking around. So we just want to take a couple of moments here. If we want to work with our elbows, then we want to get everything else in a position where it can be in neutral, we can kind of set it and forget it, or set it and ask it to stabilize while we work on the elbows. And I bet we'll feel a lot better and we'll have more specific results if we do that. So however you are, kind of feel where your pelvis is. See if you can get your pelvis to be neutral. So if your pelvis were a bowl filled with water, it would neither be tilting forward nor backward. And kind of just when you can discern that, legs even from the pelvis, hugging into the pelvis, so you feel like there's a little bit of something turned on there. Your brain can feel your pelvis. It's not like a blurry spot for you right now. And then same thing with the ribs, kind of get your ribs in a nice neutral place without it really disturbing the pelvis. Sense your spine and its natural 4S curves and just see, can you respect those curves anymore? And then setting with the shoulders here. So if you're sort of chronically rolled forward, that's something to kind of note, right? But we want to see if we can bring the shoulders more towards neutral, both in their rotation, so they're not rolling forward or super back like this. So they're sort of neutrally set here, but then they're also neutrally set in the socket front to back. So you feel like the chest is open, all that good stuff. Alrighty. So we can go ahead and take the forearms in front of us, maybe with the palms face up here. We have two forearm bones that go down from the elbow hinge down to the wrist, just like we have two shin bones that go from the knee to the ankle. And what we're going to try to do here is simply rotate our elbow at our elbow joint. So you can do this one hand at a time or both. I'm going to do both. We're going to see, can we turn and rotate the forearm so that the palms start to face down? This would be a pronated position. And then can we rotate at the elbow joint to take the palms face up? And let's just repeat several times so that the brain can start to send the command. And notice here, when your elbows start to rotate, does it make your upper arm want to move at all, or your shoulder want to move at all? That could be very common. So we're asking the brain to send a very specific signal and to differentiate these structures from each other. Now, one more thing I want to say here is notice how your wrist is involved here, because the wrist, there's lots of joints in the wrist, so it's a big place of potential movement. And so I want you to see, are you trying to lead with your wrists at all? Because sometimes I do that. And instead, see if your wrists can sort of trail behind the movement. Maybe you start to feel some muscles in your forearms. And as you start to feel pretty competent at this, over time with enough repetition, this starts to feel pretty easy for you. Consider adding a little bit of load here, some external load, like holding on to, for example, a 2-pound dumbbell, or I have wrist weights that you can Velcro onto your wrists. So that would be another good option. The idea is not just to get these mobility gains, but then to load them so that our tissues become stronger and more resilient through this entire chain of motion. All right, why don't we meet with the forearms pronated, so the palms facing down, and we'll work with our elbows at a hinge. So now they're already sort of hinged 90 degrees, but let's see, can we hinge them even more so that the palms face a little bit more forward? And we're just gonna see, pause at the elbow hinge there, but again, supinate, and pronate the forearm. And even just changing that little position, this is a totally new task for the brain. The brain considers it a different task now. So you'll have to restore that repetition, give your brain enough time to practice and to differentiate everything that you're feeling. Let's go ahead, close the hinge one more time as if you wanted to bring the hands to the shoulders, and then one more time, pronating and supinating. So sometimes it's nice just to do one arm at a time, especially if your brain's having a hard time kind of splitting its attention and focusing in all of these areas. So if that's you, if you want to do one hand at a time, maybe just rewind the video, do it all on one side, and then do it all on the other. So let's go ahead, release the hinge a little bit more. And now we're gonna ask our elbows to do their rotations with the shoulders in a different arrangement. So let me just kind of get myself resituated, and you can do that too if you're sitting, if you wanna be, sitting in a different way or something like that. But get yourself as neutral as you can get through the rest of the body here. And what we can start to play with is a little bit of shoulder abduction. So let's do this actually one side at a time. Let's go ahead and from here, take the left arm out to the side and abduct it. And if this is the first time for you doing this today, you might just take the arm out and up a few times, trying to do this without disturbing the torso, while keeping this shoulder just for the purposes of training in a neutral rotation. So as it lifts out to the side, it's not trying to rotate forward or backward. Okay, and so we get it out to the side here. Now for all intents and purposes, we get, long through all the bones here. I'll take my hand here just so I can feel this upper arm, because for all intents and purposes, we want to say, okay, here's the boundary of movement right here. So from here in, everything's frozen. And this is stability work then for the rest of the body, because it's going to have to work hard to hold this, right? So from here, freeze this upper arm and see, can you pronate and supinate? And kind of just see what range of motion will naturally give you. Try to, again, not lead with the wrist. So the wrist is kind of like a follower of the movement. And now we're going to see, can we supinate so the palm is up, okay? We're gonna try to keep this rotation. So now the rotational quality is fixed as we take a hinge of the elbow joint. And take it all the way in and take it all the way out. And then pronate through the forearm. And now freeze that rotation and hinge. And back out. Great job. Let's go ahead and lower that left arm. You can feel all the tinglies, those sensations. Don't freak out about them. Everything's cool. Let's go ahead, abduct the right arm. Do it a couple of times. I always like to do this stuff sitting in front of a mirror. I'm not right now because that's not where I can film things in my house. But when you do it in front of the mirror, then you have that visual feedback and you can say, oh, okay, cool. My torso is going off-centered when I bring my arm out. It's I have no idea what that looks like for me right now. But just kind of set your arm in abduction, shoulder abduction here. And then I'm gonna bring the hand over just to kind of feel and remind myself that this is my boundary. I'm frozen from the elbow into the body. And then I'm just gonna try to pronate and supinate. And I can feel here oh, it definitely is wanting to change the upper arm. But the more I can get these structures operating individually, independent of each other, that means the more movement options and choices I have. And so that's what we want. We want the most movement options and choices as possible because that's the most freedom in any given moment. It's oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this other thing, right? So go ahead, turn the palm to face open. Keep the rotation, hinge at the elbow to bring the hand towards the shoulder. And then open it back up. Go ahead and pronate the forearm so that the palm is facing more down. Freeze that rotation. And again, hinge. And release. So let's go ahead and do it. This is gonna be another, one of the key areas. It's like, why should I care about elbow mobility? Well, do you care about weight bearing on your arms at all? Like in tabletop, crow pose, handstand, downward facing dog? Then you care about your forearm's ability to pronate. So let's go ahead, take the arms out in front of us. And this would remind you of like a tabletop position, like like tabletop or plank. Right? That's like the most classic one. So you don't need to extend your wrist, but you can just take the arms out. And again, we're trying to be neutral. So we're trying to ask the arms to be self-sufficient. That can be a lot of work because the arms can be heavy when we first start working with our body weight. So take breaks when you need to. But let's see it here. Again, here I'm going to do both together, but again, you can just do one at a time. And we're going to pronate and supinate without trying to disturb the shoulders. And looking to just kind of see like, how am I doing? That's really good. Okay, so the next time you're pronated here, imagine you're frozen in rotation all the way up. So you're not trying to rotate through this forearm. You're also not trying to rotate through the shoulder too much, but see, can I extend my wrist? And can I hinge my elbows and draw them straight back? And then see, so rotation up here would happen right here at the joint, right? So I don't want my shoulder to sort of roll forward and cape forward of the chest. I want the shoulder back here. I want this rotation right here to be frozen. I want this rotation right here to be frozen as I press the arms back out. And so we can just go again, back. So this is the push-up and forward. And this is just about kind of seeing like, what makes sense of what I just said? What makes sense of this exploration? Because this can be kind of confusing. Great job. So let's go ahead, release, relax through this. We'll actually change gears and now get down onto the mat, onto all fours in sort of a forearm tabletop position. But I'm gonna have the hips back more like a child's pose, I think, to begin with. Now, if this is too much on your ankles or your knees, consider getting like a couple of blocks, and you can put blocks underneath your bottom or prop your bottom up like with couch cushions between your shins and thighs, get creative. Because here we'll see layering the forearms down on the ground. Okay, can you identify which position this is for your forearms? This is pronate. Like when you're lying prone on the ground, you're lying on your belly. So it's like the belly, think of the belly as the palm of your hands, belly down. Okay, now your hands are sort of fixed here. And so you might actually be rotating more at your wrist and less at your elbow. This can create some like sort of wrist differences. So I want you to see, can you get your entire wrist to go down? There's two sides of it, right? The inner and outer. So can you ground both inner and outer and take the elbow down? Now this would be like a perfect scenario that your forearm could actually do this. If you're more like this, where your palms are a little bit more lifted, cool, let's know that about ourselves. But let's keep the elbows down here on the ground. Again, pronate, supinate. See if you can get your collarbones to feel pretty wide here. Can you kind of feel your shoulder blades on the back? Because, a well-set shoulder will really help with this work feeling more specific and not confusing and not excruciating. Okay, let's see if we can load this a little bit more. So this is up to you. You can stay here. You can walk the forearms a little bit more forward, shoulders over the elbows, so you're more in like a tabletop position. Now you have more weight, more load in the arms. We're gonna see again, pronate, supinate. And again, I'm trying to do this without, any sort of manipulation happening through the rest of the body, the upper arms. We have the option to move forward one more time, more like you're in kind of like a knees down forearm planks, more or less. And again, here we go, pronate, supinate. How you doing? Now we can see, I'm going to walk the knees just a little bit more towards the elbows. And from here we're going to see, can we keep the pronated position? What did we just say? That was palms down, right? So pronated position, can you press that forward and stretch your hips back and stretch through the shoulders any amount? And then come forward. And just rock back a couple of times. So you're more dynamic in this. You can kind of feel like all the things that feel normal, all the things that feel weird. Now here we go. Can we supinate the forearm? So when we lie supine on the ground, we're lying on our backs. So the backs of the hands down now here. What you'll notice here is that the thumb side of your hand wants to roll off the ground, right? It wants to resist that rotation into the supine position. So see, can you get a little bit more deliberately the thumb side of the hand and the wrist down, and then pressing down and forward, stretching the hips back any amount. And then coming forward and dynamically moving a couple more times. So I'm feeling a lot of activity in the arms and the shoulders, sometimes even in the core, the abdomen, just to kind of maintain and hold all the work that I'm trying to do. Okay, so let's go ahead, pronate, come on up to the palms here. Let's try just one more exercise, and that's gonna be pronate, supinate with elbow hinges. So let's start kind of where we were before. So with the elbows close in by the knees to begin with. And then this way we just have a progression and we can always pedal back or pedal forward, whatever feels right to us, right? So start with your forearms pronated, go between supination and pronation just a couple of times so you can set your upper arms in their nice stable environment. And then the next time that you pronate the hands face down, this should remind you of any weight bearing on the hands at all, right? Because you always have to have your palms face down on the ground when you're bearing weight on them. So now we wanna, just like we did when we were sitting, freeze the rotation here and see if we can lift the elbows over the wrist towards straight. And then take the elbows back down. And we'll just do this a couple of times. And so if you're wondering well, how do I tell if I've frozen that rotation? Look at the soft crease of your elbow. If that soft crease of your elbow is rotating right and left, it means that the bones are still rotating. So we want to get it so that it's just a true hinge here. We want to be able to differentiate our elbow movements between the rotations and the hinge. Now let's see here. We walk the knees maybe a little bit more back, the arms a little bit more forward. So you're more like in a tabletop position with your forearms down. Same thing, let's do pronate and supinate just to kind of give the upper arms a chance to set really well. Then pronating, hands down, press the hands down, freeze the rotation. Can you come up, shoulders over wrists, and back down? Maybe 2 more times. Do you want to try this one more time? Because if you do, we can walk forward again. A little bit more space, shoulders over elbows to begin with, okay? Pronate, supinate. Pronate, hands down. Let's see. Elbows up and down. The shoulders might stay back this time. That's okay. Let's walk the hands back underneath the shoulders for tabletop position with the hands down, and just kind of see here, like if you're, where would your elbows bend? Are they gonna bend straight back towards your knees? Like if they were gonna bend, that sort of, what does that indicate to us? That indicates that rotational element of the forearm, right? And so that's sort of what we're wanting here, is you can kind of like move around in your body, and you can just kind of see like, this is a position we do a lot in yoga. And so did you ever think about like, hey, how my forearms are rotating, or how much control I have over that, or, if one side is really different from the other? Because if you came forward and now it's like, same with the elbows down and then up here, but imagine you're not trying to lower your elbows down to the floor, you're actually trying to lower your body to the floor in a push-up position by bending the elbows and coming up. So only if that is making sense to you today, but it's like, can I freeze the rotation of the elbow so that it's in the pronated position? When it's pronated, right, it's rolled forward like this. And so if we kind of lack that mobility here, what happens is that you're not able to get the palm flat to the ground. And that's why sometimes in a weight-bearing position, you feel lighter on the index finger. And sometimes the yoga teacher's always cueing, press down to your index finger. What they're actually trying to say to you there is, see if you can get more pronation in your forearm. But they're using it as the visual cue of pressing your pointer finger down. So that's it. Kind of check out how you feel here. Like, are you feeling a little pumped? Are you feeling a little, I don't know, add some weight to it. Keep working on this, because this will really pay off big time with all of our weight-bearing postures. So thank you so much for joining in today's practice. I'll see you right here next week. And before I hop off, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who's already donated to us on Patreon. It feels really great to just know that, you are out there and that this is valuable to you. So if you'd like to join the Patreon community, I will put a link down below in the description. Other than that, have a fabulous day.